Heritage Words, a podcast about the words we've inherited from our ancestors and the meaning they bring to our lives. Heritage Words is produced by the HUC Jewish Language Project, which raises awareness about Jewish ancestral diversity through the lens of language. I'm your host, Sarah Bunin Benor. Today, our guest is Ashton Kahen. Ashton David or Davud Kahen is a first-year student at Baruch College. Ashton is an independent researcher focused on Iranian Jewish history, cultural preservation, the origins of Israelite religion, and endangered Jewish dialects. During high school, he worked on documenting his ancestral language, Judeo-Tuyserkani, and now he's working on an online dictionary of that variety in partnership with the Jewish Language Project and Living Dictionaries, Living Tongues. He also founded the Iranian Culture Club at Great Neck North High School. Ashton, welcome to Heritage Words.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. So let's start by talking about your names. Tell us about what they are and what they mean to you.
Sure. So as Persian Jews kind of have, there's like a bunch of different names. You have your American name and your Hebrew name and your Persian name, and things kind of get convoluted. As for me, when my mom and dad moved to America from Iran, they wanted a name that was more normative to like American culture and I wouldn't be singled out. So, I mean, Ashton is a pretty American sounding name, so that's what they went with. As for my Hebrew name, it's interesting. I'm named after my grandfather from my dad's side. He was named Agha Daoud. In Farsi, the name kind of becomes Davud with a V. But in Tuyserkani, what I've noticed is when my grandma says it, there's this kind of like slang kind of way that she says it in Daoud. So I guess, yeah, my grandpa's name was Daoud. And so I kind of received that name as Davud. So I like grew up calling my middle name Davud, but it's actually spelled out like David because my mom again wanted to like make it more like intelligible for like a normal American. If they're reading out my name, it's not like Ashton Davud Kahen, you know? So yeah, so I am named after him. And then Kahen is interesting because we kind of see how in Hebrew, when the name Kohen is written, it's a kaf, a hey, and a nun. And so we don't actually have the vav there that has like the O vowel that we see. So what I assume kind of happened is like there was kind of this shift where it became like the same way we see kasher and kosher, maybe Kahen and Kohen. That's just my own like kind of idea of maybe what happened there. But yeah, so I'm from the like there's like two Kohen families in the entirety of my dad's side's village, Tuyserkan in Iran, and so I descend, of course, from one of those families.
So, do you ever attend synagogue?
Yeah, I attend Avad Shalom Synagogue here in Great Neck, which is like an Iranian Jewish. We call it a kenisa, which we'll get into later. And I go every Saturday. Yeah.
And when you're called to the Torah, do they call you as David, Davud, Daoud? What's the name they call you as?
So there's kind of what's interesting about our community here is there was kind of like this shift towards like a Sephardic kind of pronunciation. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of our unique like pronunciations and stuff. So yeah, originally they would call me like David Ben Moshe, but in reality, I tend to correct them. And since then, like for the past couple months or so, they do call me by Davud Ben Moshe. So they're not opposed to it, but it's not like the norm there, you know?
Got it. And do you also do Birkat HaKohanim?
Of course. I make sure to get there so that I can do Birkat Kohanim twice every day.
Okay, great. So you grew up in Great Neck, and do you still live there now?
Yeah.
Okay. And you started the Iranian Culture Club at your school. Is that all Jewish students that were part of your club, or were there also students of other religions?
So the Iranian Culture Club in Great Neck was kind of my like push. Me and actually my friends too. We kind of all came together and started to like push back this idea of, guys, we're Iranian. Why are we forgetting that? Why are we hiding it? You know, there's this weird thing in Great Neck where and we'll get back to like this kind of connects us to how our languages are dying. There's this push to like not want to be associated with Iran. I mean, for obvious reasons. But yeah, they want to like leave that in the past and forget it. And we're kind of like, guys, come on. We're Persian, like that's who we are. So yeah, in the Iranian Culture Club, we had our the leader, kind of the teacher who was running the club with us, was a Muslim Persian man, and his name is Farshad Fati, and he was really really helpful and super inclusive, and there was very little, if any, like the biggest problem was that he wanted to bring us food on Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year, and it wasn't kosher, so we couldn't eat it. But like other than like small little things like that, it was like a family, you know. There was so much in common that whatever our differences were was negligible.
Wow. So what percentage of the students at your high school were Jewish?
So it's a public high school, but surprisingly, I would say about 60% of the students there are Jewish of some sort, and then another 40% are specifically Iranian Jewish. So we were very tight-knit community, you could say. Yeah.
So, and the other 20% of Jews, were they Ashkenazi, or like what backgrounds did they have?
So they were kind of, I'm sorry. They were kind of like all mostly like Israeli, so like I would guess a mix of Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews from Israel who came in. I know of like a couple of Yemenite families, but also there was a significant number of, yeah, like just Americanized Ashkenazi
Mhm.
families. Yeah.
Okay. And then what language did you grow up speaking mostly in your home?
I grew up mostly speaking Farsi. Like Farsi is my first language. I mean, my grandmother spends a lot of her time. I live with my grandma, so my grandmother spends a lot of her time like on the TV watching these Turkish shows translated into Farsi. And so I picked up on a lot of words growing up. I still don't understand 100%, like some of the crazy poetic like words like I won't understand, but like I'm conversational in Farsi, and that's the language I grew up with. English kind of came second or later on.
Okay, so you live with your grandmother and your parents?
I live with my grandmother and my mom and my brother, and my parents are divorced, so that's my mom's side. And then my
Mhm.
dad's side of the house, I live with my dad, my grandmother from his side, and then his sisters.
Okay, and with all of those relatives, do you mostly speak Farsi?
Yeah, so I mean, there's slight differences because you kind of hear like there's a dialectical difference, kind of, or like I guess an accent. With my mom's side and my dad's side is a slight minimal difference, but the words are the same. It's just the way they say it.
Okay, so where in Iran were they from and who immigrated?
Sure. So on my mom's side of the family, it's very like mixed. So from on my mom's mom, my grandmother from my mom's side, her dad was Bijari, which Bijar is like Kurdish Jews, like Neo-Aramaic speaking. And so he immigrated into Hamadan, and then from Hamadan, he made his way into Tehran, which all the Jews kind of started like migrating slowly into Tehran, um, where he met my grandmother, my grandmother's mom in the Jewish ghetto there, which was called Sadechod. So Sadechol is this kind of beautiful amalgamation of a bunch of Jewish groups that kind of met in like the heart of the Tehran city. And it kind of became like a mix of Jews from all over Iran. And so in Sadechol, my great grandpa, sorry, meets my great grandma, who herself was of both native Tehrani and also Damavandi descent. So Damavandi is interesting. It's a mountain right above, just above Tehran, near the Caspian Sea. It's the biggest mountain in Iran, where there's supposedly an ancient Jewish community that has traditions of descending from the lost tribes of Israel. So very, very old, very cool. Ancient cemetery there that a lot of my relatives are actually buried in. So yeah, so they meet in Tehran. So that's the Bijari and Tehrani and Damavandi in me. And then going off into my grandpa, my mom's dad, he is of half Saracholi descent, which probably from Damavand, because his last name was also Damavandi, so we kind of assume that it like went from Damavand to Sarachol. They're not that far from each other. And then his mom, Bibi John, was Kashani, so all over. So she was a Kashi Jew, and she definitely spoke Judeo-Kashani before moving to Sarachol. And so that's my mother's side. And then on my father's side, much simpler, just entirely Tuyserkani Jewish, from that one little town neighboring Hamadan and Nahovand.
And so when did they come to the US?
So differing times. My mom was born in 1980 in Iran, and I think she left about 2 years after she was born with my grandma. So my mom was born in Iran, but she didn't really stay there for that long. She grew up in America, but again, she grew up with my grandma, my grandpa only speaking to her in Farsi, so she's very fluent in Farsi. And my dad has this whole story about how he escaped again after 1979 with the whole revolution. He went on a camel. He snuck with a little group of people through Pakistan, and then I think he went to Germany or something. And from there, he took a flight to America, and where they all ended up in New York.
So what year did your dad arrive in the US?
Um, I believe it took 3 years from his escape to arriving in the US. So that would be somewhere around 1985, 1986.
Okay. Okay, so your family's been in the US for quite a while,
Yeah.
and you grew up, you were born in the New York area and just lived there your whole life, right?
Yeah. It's important to know though, my dad left when he was like 17. So he spent his like entire teen and like childhood in Iran.
Okay, got it. And then uh, do your parents speak only Farsi to each other?
Yeah, because they don't have any Judeo language in common for them to speak. So it's mostly a mix of Farsi and English, like spotted in.
Okay. And do they speak that same mix of Farsi and English to you and your brother?
Yeah, that's that's kind of the same language that a lot of us in Great Neck continue to use with each other.
Yeah. Well, there's really a need for research on Farsi English, Persian English, both in Great Neck and in LA. I really think that could be something you could focus on at some point in the future. I mean, the work you're doing documenting endangered languages is also quite important, but
Thank you.
I think it would be also great to record the way that Persian Jews speak English today.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome project that I could definitely like kind of move into in the future when I'm done documenting Judeo-Tuyserkani to the best of my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me, how did you first learn that Judeo-Tuyserkani was one of your ancestral languages?
Super cool. So I stumbled what kind of sent me down this whole rabbit hole was I stumbled on Mr. Alan Niku's work, which was really interesting about the switch from Persian Nusakh to Sephardic Nusakh and all of these things. And it really got me like, oh, there's something more here. It doesn't make sense that I'm a Persian Jew. And when I go to kenisa, I'm putting on a white button down shirt and a black pair of suit pants and getting ready to like read in a language that sounds nothing like how my grandpa would say the Hebrew, you know? So there's these weird things, and what ended up happening was um, so my grandma's sisters live in Iran to this day, and so we WhatsApp call them. We call them all the time. You know, it's like family. I have first cousins there in Israel. I mean in Iran. And then so when my grandma would speak to her family in Iran, her sisters, she would use this like weird version of language that I had no clue what it was at all. And I was like, guys, what is happening here? I never even thought to like think about it before, but like something turned on in my brain where I was like, okay, so what someone needs to explain what's happening here. And I always heard, I mean, in Great Neck, you always hear about how the Esfahanis, especially the Esfahanis, have their own language and they talk Esfahani. And I have Esfahani friends who speak Farsi with a very thick Esfahani accent, and it's very funny. So I knew that there was other languages that the Jews had, but I didn't know that I was part of that too. I thought, oh, maybe it's just the Esfahanis, they have their own thing, whatever. And so I started asking about it. My dad's like, yeah, Ashton, of course. What do you mean? This is like our whole I'm like, oh my God. So I kind of really annoyed my entire family trying to get every single word that I could at that time. And this was around the time that COVID was happening, that this like first kind of like pushed out, but I didn't go any further than that. It was a couple notes um on like a piece of loose leaf paper, and little did I know later on that was the most extensive research ever done on this language. Like it was wild to me. So it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole of like discovering where I'm from. Like apparently I didn't even know this. I come from a rabbinic lineage, like wild, crazy. Yeah.
Well, how did you learn about your ancestry?
A lot of it was just annoying my family as much as possible. Going, sitting down, visiting my dad's house, sitting down with my grandma. And I'm happy I did at the time I did, because now she's starting to get like dementia and she's starting to forget a lot. She's well into her 80s. And so I'm happy that, and oh, the best thing I did, I'm so happy I did this. Every single time I sat down to have a conversation with her, I would record with my phone. So I have dozens of, probably hours of just voice recording of me and her talking and telling me the stories about Tuyserkan, how the Jews were like modestly living there. And it's just, I don't know, it's beautiful. And I'm so happy that I was able to document that. And what I,
That is amazing. And it's so unusual for someone in high school to do that kind of work.
yeah,
Uh, and so, and I really hope that you keep those recordings and make sure they're all backed up.
yeah, I've been told they're all backed up. Don't worry.
Okay, good. So then how did you get in touch with Dr. Habib Bourjian, who's one of the world's researchers, one of the world's experts on Jewish Iranian languages?
Crazy, insane story. I was just going through my phone as always, like, all right, let's see if I can find the slightest bit of information on Judeo-Tuyserkani. Maybe someone has something out there. And I'm going and I find this website that kind of shows where different languages, I forgot the name of it, where different languages are spoken. And in Great Neck, our little peninsula, they had Judeo-Kashani, I believe, and Judeo-Neo-Aramaic, maybe. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, we speak Judeo-Tuyserkani. Let me just add it in. So I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was just, all right, sure, I'll just put it in. And so I put it in, and I said, this little spot in Great Neck, we speak Judeo-Tuyserkani. Not even a week later, I get an email from like this big research dude who's like, yeah, we've actually been searching for like anyone that speaks your language, and this is like jackpot for us. So please, here's 100 words. Go ask your family and see if you can get it for us. And I was like,
Oh, amazing. So was
"Well,
that Habib Bourjian or was it
that
someone else
was that was Habib. That was
from?
Habib.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's from the Endangered Language Alliance, which is one of the partner organizations of the Jewish Language Project. They do amazing work documenting endangered languages in New York. And I'm so glad that you did that. So what year did you submit that info on the website?
Um, I believe that was like beginning of 2024.
Okay.
So like about a year ago, I think I submitted that.
Great. And then Dr. Bourjian was the one who connected you to me, and I'm really glad that he did that. And now you are doing a project through the Jewish Language Project, through the Jewish Language Project language advocacy track, where
Yeah.
you are doing some of this research more formally. And
Yeah.
creating this dictionary. So thank you so much for all that great work that you're doing.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to like do what I want to do and make it like serious and not just four notes on a loose leaf paper, you know? I really
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So you told us about your heritage languages. Now I want to hear about how you engage with them. So you speak a combination of Farsi and English at home. And do you also speak that way when you're talking to other friends from different Iranian Jewish backgrounds?
Right. Yeah. So I mean in Great Neck we have this whole like mush of different communities in Iran. So you have the Kurdish Jews, big one is the Esfahanis here. You have the Mashadis that kind of seclude themselves from everybody else. And you have the Tehranis and the Hamadunis, and there's so much, right? Um, there's kind of the big divide that you kind of see is between the Mashadis and everybody else because they like to seclude themselves and have their own kenisas and everything. But no matter who I'm talking to, we all kind of have this base understanding of Farsi. So although like we've kind of also adopted some Esfahani words as like joke words to throw in, because we see it as funny. Majority of what we're speaking is this kind of mix of English and Farsi. And sometimes it's Farsi 90% with a couple English words thrown in. And sometimes it's English 90% with a bunch of Farsi words thrown in. And then, of course, because we're in an Iranian Jewish community, we see a bunch of specifically Persian Jewish words that are only kind of being kept alive, I believe, by our community and the one in LA. And then also some Hebrew terms get thrown in too, because we are surrounded by Israelis and other Jewish communities too. I mean, in Queens, which is not too far away, there's a huge Bukharian community, which has a lot of contact with the surrounding Jews in Queens. So there's a lot of that cultural exchange that like gets brought down to us too. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of uh, similarity between Bukharian and
oh yeah.
Farsi.
In my opinion, Bukharians are just a type of Persian Jew. They're part of the bigger like group. We're all Persian. We're all part of the empire. You know, just because you speak Russian now doesn't mean back then you weren't one of us.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so tell us some of the words that you have been keeping alive in your Persian Jewish community.
So so just in general, Persian Jewish community, um, one of the big ones is kenisa. So most of the time, when you're speaking to a Persian Jew and you're like, we're gonna go to synagogue or we're gonna go to shul, they'll probably respond to you like, oh, what kenisa are you talking about? So we know, like, yeah, people say shul, people say synagogue, but we say kenisa. So kenisa is really interesting. I believe it comes from like an Aramaic origin, and it's similar to the Hebrew Beit Knesset. But when we're referring to what synagogue we'd go to, or if we're going to synagogue today, we'd say, "Are you going to Kenisa today?" And we've even like made it into like an English word. You see it on like flyers in Great Neck to like come to Kenisa today, or like, you know, and there's like an English version, Kenissa, I think is how they spell it, but there's different spellings because it's not like uniform. But it's interesting how like well it's integrated into our like everyday speech.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And that word is also common in other communities, right?
Wow, I didn't know that.
I mean, in other Persian communities, other Persian Jewish communities.
Yeah, no, so this word is kind of like a overarching term. What I'm talking about right now is not specific to Tuyserkan or anything.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Really just a greater Persian Jewish term. Now, I will say this, the Mashadis do have a separate pronunciation. They kind of say Kanisa with an
Oh,
E instead of Kenisa like the rest of us. So I don't know. I think the Bukharians might actually also say Kanisa.
yeah,
Um,
I think that's right. Yeah.
it's like an interesting, they're very, I mean, Mashhad and Bukhara is very close, so it's definitely plausible.
Oh, interesting. Okay, what other words?
Yeah, so another big one is Guimi. Guimi is interesting. We use it a lot. Guimi just kind of means non-kosher. So if I wanted something at the store and I'm with my mom and I'm like, oh, Maman, that looks good. And she's like, Guimi das nazan, meaning like it's not kosher, don't touch it, you know? And then branching off of that is also the word guim, which guim is just like non-Jewish or like a Gentile, as you'd say. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah,
So it comes from the Hebrew word goyim
yeah.
and is pronounced guim in Judeo-Persian, right?
Yeah. And so it's interesting. We kind of see this shift, vowel shift, or maybe it's like just a different like traditional pronunciation, where the vav there, which a lot of the time in other communities is pronounced like o, like goyim, we would pronounce as u, like guim. So we see that in a lot of other words too, like kadosh turns into chadush, like other stuff like that. But yeah, it's a very normal word. Again, like guimi is like we say that every day.
Okay. What other words are on your list?
So I have a couple words in Tuyserkani here that I have prepared that are kind of only in use by like the older generation. But I've noticed that my grandma, when speaking to her sisters, kind of continue to like slip in their Farsi. So one of these is Cheikeri, which is kind of like Chetori or how are you? And she uses that in combination with like just regular Farsi. So she would be asking like, "Oh, hi, what's up? How are you?" And she would use Che Keri as "Hi, how are you?" instead of like the Chetori. So it's like these small things that are like small differences, but they kind of just like lingered. But what's weird is not weird, but interesting is they kind of completely go extinct after that. Like in the generation under her, we do not see any Judeo-Tuyserkani loan words or anything in the speech, and it's unfortunate, but there is a reason for it. Unfortunately, the next generations kind of see these languages as backwards or like a village like talk of like lower people kind of. It's like this weird idea that I think during the Pahlavi era where they were kind of trying to standardize everyone to speak Farsi, there was these negative connotations attributed to these like more traditional village uh languages and stuff, which like the Jews kept for so long. But this is the final time where we're hearing it before they kind of fade out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's exactly right. And it's amazing that you're doing this work to document these endangered languages.
thank you. I'm just checking back to the list I have here. Um,
What other words do you have?
I have. Oh, okay. So another cool one that is both used in general Persian Jewry, but also in the Tuyserkani tongue that my grandparents use is Ben Ebri. So Ben Ebri is sometimes in other groups also pronounced Ben Evri, but in my family it's almost always Ben Ebri. And Ben Ebri kind of just means Jewish. Like this is a like is this person in Yoru Ben Ebriye? Is this person Jewish? Is this person kind of it's more of saying the literal translation would mean like a child of the Hebrews. Like is this a Ben like a child of Ebriya, like the Hebrews? So is this like a Hebrew person? Which is interesting that they use that instead of like I don't know Yahudi or something. So it's cool that they kept these kind of older ideas of who their identity and who they were. And so I thought that was cool to kind of add in too because it's more rare. It's not used as much as, for example, Israel, which is like the general term, like an Israelite. Is that person an Israelite? Un Israel. But it has been like kind of retained over time, and I think it was interesting to add that in as well.
Do you use that word or just you hear it from the older generations?
So yeah, we could most of the time we use Israel, but if here and there we say Ben Ebri, is that person Ben Ebri? Most of the time it is a little bit of confusion because we say Ebri for Hebrew. So if someone's speaking Hebrew, which we see here because there's Israelis here, um, اون یارو داره عبری حرف میزنه, is that guy speaking Hebrew right now? So we also use Ebri as just the word for Hebrew most of the time. Which just gets into that idea of us using Farsi and English all the time, like interchangeably. So
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. And actually, before I forget, can you give us an example of that kind of language mixing that you're talking about with Farsi and English? Like, what would be a kind of sentence that would combine the two?
Sure. I just gotta think of something off the top of my head here. Bro, my piran is so cherk right now, and I have to go to kenisa. So that would mean like, bro, my shirt is so like wrinkled and dirty right now, and I have to go to kenisa. I have to go to synagogue, and it's not clean. It's like messed up or something, you know. And that's just like me within my own friends. Like that's just how we talk.
And do you think that your friends who are not fluent in Farsi would understand that?
So it's really funny. Even the non-Jewish people at our school, like the East Asian communities and stuff, have begun to pick up on a lot of the Persian and a lot of the even Hebrew words that we speak. So, I mean, yeah, like the diffusion is, I mean, we kind of like, it's more of in opposition to what you'd see in the rest of America. The Judeo-Persian kind of dominates here, where like other you'd see other people kind of adopting our words rather than the other way around. So
Yes,
it's
so that's another great topic for your future research.
yeah, that would be. I mean, yeah, it's something unstudied, undocumented before. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I think you might have a few more words on your list.
Yeah. So one that I've kind of like myself pushed to bring back into existence is the word bova. And so bova or bova, it's kind of like interchangeable, is the term for baba or dad, Abba in Hebrew. And so it's we see similar versions of this in Hamiduni, which is a nearby language, and Nahavandi, Judeo. Obviously, I'm speaking of the Jewish forms of these. So Nahavandi, Burujerdi, Melayeri. These are all like surrounding villages, and we see similar forms of the word. But yeah, so bova is the way that they would say dad in Judeo-Tuyserkani. So my grandma used to call her dad bova and her grandpa bova maser. So maser kind of meant like greater or like bigger, you know. So bova maser. And so mom is kind of the same thing. You have nane, which is used in both Farsi and Judeo-Tuyserkani. And then for grandmother, you'd say nane maser. So I do also use Nana Maser for my grandma a lot, and she gets like a kick out of it. She likes it. She likes that I'm like this young kid speaking this language that she has not heard a young kid speak in
Well, so
ages.
what did you call her before you started using that word?
So I would call her either Maman Bozorg, which just means like grandma in Farsi, or like traditionally we also call her like her name followed by like a respectful term. So like Mami Popo. So her name is Puran, and since I was little and I couldn't really pronounce Puran, they just shortened it down to Popo. So I would call her Mommy Popo as like a sign of respect. And that's mostly what I call her now. But if we're speaking Tuyserkani, which we tend to do now that I'm trying to like push that in, I call her Nane Maser. And my dad is like Bova all the time now.
Wow. And how does your dad feel about that?
My dad thinks it's cool. My dad's like he never had any opposition against it. He didn't even feel like it felt unnatural because he always heard it, you know. So he was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I was calling him Bubba before, so it's not like that. It's not like a crazy difference, but it was like my cousins who hear me say I get a kick out of it because they're like, why is he? What does Bubba mean, guys? Like, what are you doing?
So it
But
hasn't caught on in the rest of your family?
not exactly, but in a tight knit, like at my dad's house, they kind of like, all right, that's what it is now. Bubba.
Well, I think that's great. It's a really interesting example of third generation return, where the grandparents speak a language, their children don't, but then the grandchildren are interested in learning it and try
Yeah.
to incorporate some of it into their own language through heritage words.
Yeah, exactly. I think that put it really well. Like I'm just trying to. I mean, my dad and his sisters can understand Tuyserkani. If you were to speak, if you had a fluent speaker speaking to them like super fast, they'd understand every word. But when talking to them and trying to have a conversation where they talk back, they tend to forget words here and there, and they're not like 100% on it. Like they know the language, but it's just they don't use it, and they haven't used it in so long that it's been like kind of distorted. They don't have like the perfect, I guess, real way of Tuyserkani. It's very mixed in with Farsi and stuff.
Yeah. And how fluent are you in Tuyserkani now?
Very bad. I mean, like I can I can get a couple like short sentences in, but after that, if they start getting into like real stuff, I'm like, okay, guys, let's hold back one sec. Yanichi, what does that mean? You know?
But
Um,
you try to speak it with your grandma when you interact with her?
I try, and it's been harder recently because again, like the dementia and stuff, she's starting to forget a lot. But I've kind of like carried that on to like when I speak with her sisters in Iran, we try and like do like a little bit of Tuyserkani here and there until I can't anymore, and they're like, okay, enough, you know.
Uh, well, I'm sorry about the dementia, and it's interesting. Some people with dementia actually do switch back to their childhood language, but it sounds like like has that happened at all with your grandma?
That's insane. That's crazy that you mentioned that. Yeah, I didn't think that was a real thing. I thought that was just her. No, so since she's had dementia, my entire family I've been hearing it a lot more. I thought it was because of me, but no, it was really because I mean her dementia was getting worse, unfortunately. But yeah, my dad, my his sisters, and everyone that are taking care of her, almost half the conversations they have with her now, which used to all be in just plain Farsi, are in Tuyserkani, or at least Farsi with Tuyserkani words mixed in, just because she understands it better, you know? And that's what if you're talking to her in Farsi, sometimes she'll even respond in Tuyserkani.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's interesting. Yeah.
And that's actually exactly what happened to someone in LA who's also working on one of our dictionaries of Judeo-Kashani. Her dad started to experience dementia and started to speak his ancestral language or his childhood language.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What is this?" Because they had always spoken Farsi. And then she realized that it was a different language, Kashani, and or Kashi, yeah, it's called. And so so she actually started taking notes, and he has subsequently died. But in that period of dementia before he died, she took over 100 pages of handwritten notes, and now she's working on the Kashi dictionary.
That's amazing. I saw on the Living Dictionaries there was a Kashi dictionary. It was huge, 700 words. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
One day we say Inshallah. God willing, I get to that point where I could do that with Tuyserkani. But yeah,
That's that's right. Okay, do you have any other words on your list?
I believe I have one more. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Um, uh, is so yeah, like I said before, Israela. So Israela is just another like self-designation term that we use for each other. It's not like the English Israeli or Israelite. It's just I guess the Farsi version, which would be Israela. So un Israele meaning is that person an Israelite. It's just another way that we call ourselves amongst ourselves, and we still continue this in our generation where we're like, is that person uh, Jewish? Is that person Israel?
Would you use that word to refer to Jews who are not Persian?
So yes, specifically, there's a term for Persian Jews that we do use. It's cool that you brought that up. We use kalimi. So kalimi, from our own use, kind of just means a Persian or Iranian Jew. So if you're speaking about another Iranian Jew, that would be kalimi. But that's used less in our generation and more, I think, in the older generations. Our generation doesn't use kalimi as much. It's more Israel. But yeah, like the term Israel, I think is just used for any Jewish person. Doesn't matter. The designation term for Iranian Jews would be Kadimi.
Okay. So we're almost out of time, but I want to make sure to give you a chance to tell us any other thoughts you might have about your ancestry, your language, your identity, and community.
So I think it's so important that if you're an Iranian Jew watching, or for that matter, any Jew or anyone from anywhere with a culture that you're kind of seeing dying out, or you have more questions about something that you just haven't been able to get the chance to do, or like you haven't thought about it before, like there's so much right now that we're literally losing. And this age where it's easier than ever to document and to preserve, we just have a lack of people who even know about their languages to document or preserve. There's so many people that I've talked to here in Great Neck that when they've heard about what I was doing, they were like, oh my God, do I have that? Maybe I'll ask my grandma, So it's just, there's so much to be seen and so much to be found. And we just need more people like us. I'm sure whoever out there is watching probably has some ancestry or some friend who knows someone. With the Jewish world, we're all connected. There's so much that could be preserved right now that we just need more people pushing to do so. So if you have that, or if you know someone that has this kind of hidden away knowledge and you're at a point in your life where you're able to take control and document it for your own next generation or for the next generations of the world, I guess, do so. Fight that. Like, make sure that you're like, I don't know, push through, get it done, Like, I have so much going on right now. I'm starting up college. I just graduated high school. I'm balancing this with my friends constantly wanting to hang out and all these other things, but I still, or Shabbat or whatever, I still make the time. I'm like, I want to get my language, I want to save it. I want to document it so that if my kids want to learn it one day, or they even have a question, I'm able to answer it.
That's amazing, Ashton. Well, thank you so much for all the work you're doing and for spending time with us today on Heritage Words.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Heritage Words is a partnership of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Language Project and HUC Connect, supported by tax-deductible donations from listeners like you. I'm the producer and host, Sarah Bunin Benor. Kyle Elbaz-Fingerhut is assistant producer, Avishai Artzi is editor, and Talia Ehrenberg is video editor. The music is from Maurice El Medioni's French and Algerian Arabic album Café Oran, featuring the Klezmatics David Krakauer and Frank London, courtesy of Piranha Records. This podcast is one of the many ways the Jewish Language Project raises awareness about the diversity of the Jewish people and the phenomenon of heritage words. We also have online crowdsourced dictionaries where you can find the words mentioned on the podcast. We post Jewish Word of the Week and fun facts on social media, and we offer free educational materials and exhibits that you can visit online or display in a synagogue, museum, or community center. Contact us about our live taping opportunities. Looking for gifts for Shabbat dinners and Passover seders? Check out our whimsical multilingual t-shirts, tote bags, stickers, and aprons. You can find all this content and donate, volunteer, or sign up for our email list at jewishlanguages.org. Thank you, merci mucho, soch boshi, rahmat, shukran, toda rabah, ashenem dank.